This Pendle Council livestream will start in just a few minutes. You can view tonight's meeting agenda by visiting pendle.gov.uk/meetings, where the upcoming meeting notes are available to view. We will go live very soon. All of the future Pendle meeting agendas, as well as the previous meeting reports and minutes, can be viewed on the Council website at pendle.gov.uk/meetings. Tonight's meeting will start shortly.
you everyone. Please take seats. Thank you everyone. We'll start with the meeting now. It's 7 o'clock and I hope we can finish the meeting soon. It's 27. It's a special night for us to stay the night in the masjid. So let's see how soon we can finish the meeting. Back to the end. So thank you everyone for coming down. So can I have the apologies? Mr. Wade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I give apologies for Councillor Mick Strickland, who's working away and he doesn't think he's going to be back by the end of the meeting. And can I give apologies for Councillor Whip, who unfortunately is in Airedale, where it rather not be, but nevertheless still is.
Yes.
Yeah. Apologies from Councillor Zafar Ali and also Ruby Anwar.
Thank you. Councillor Nadeem.
Apologies from Councillor Martin Stone, first of all. He's going to be late. Just had a message from him. Ash Sutcliffe, Councillor O'Connor. I'm not sure who else.
Yeah, Councillor Clean.
Yeah, Clean, sorry, yes. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Next is declarations of interest. Members are reminded of the legal requirements concerning the declarations of interest. A member must declare a disclosable pecuniary interest which she has in any item on the agenda. A member with a disclosable pecuniary interest in any item may not participate in any discussion of the matter at the meeting and must not participate in any vote taken on the matter at the meeting. In addition, the Council's standing orders require a member with a disclosable pecuniary interest to leave the room where the meeting is held while any discussion or voting takes place. Next is item number 3, presentations of petitions. 1,600 signatures petition to be presented to Council by Mr. Ian Chapman, renewable energy and battery storage facilities. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
We're going to start now, sir.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Right. Good evening, everybody. Mayor and councillors. I'm here tonight to present my petition. It's going to highlight the oversupply of wind, solar farms and battery storage facilities within the UK Connections Network for Net Zero 2050. My name is Ian Chapman and I'm the organiser of the petition. What I would like the council as a whole to consider, review and investigate or set out the law. I would like the council to undertake, explore, evaluate and to discuss in detail their own knowledge and understanding of our government's position into the failing national infrastructure and the major upheaval required of our electricity network to support renewable energy nationwide, in particular within the Borough of Pendle. There is also a need to discuss by Pendle Borough Council the underlying...
Could you speak up a bit, please?
Right, there is also a need to discuss by Pendle Borough Council the underlying major issues caused by the backlog of planning applications, network connections and phantom projects, upwards of 1,700 schemes. They have been brought forward into the connection process nationally and locally, and now it is affecting the Borough of Pendle and its own commitment to its climate emergency plan. I would also like you to consider how as a council that you could set new or revise live policies or add conditions to planning applications to accommodate renewable energy, wind farms, battery storage or solar farms within Pendle Borough, without it being detrimental to the open aspect and encroachment into the green belt of our countryside. The UK government has also pledged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050 to help with global warming. Pendle Borough Council, also along with nationwide councils, announced a climate emergency action plan in 2022 to 2025 to help support our government and our borough in trying to achieve these targets. Unfortunately, there is now a connections queue of renewables and battery storage facilities of over 739 gigawatts as of December 2024. These figures represent a figure almost double what is required to meet our government's net zero targets of 2050, even in the most optimistic case scenario. To place things into perspective, the Moral Farm battery storage facility on Greenhead Lane in Pendle, at 50 megawatts in size, amounts to only 0.019% of the 258 gigawatts of battery storage facilities nationwide contained in our nation's connections backlog. On Friday the 10th of January 2025, the House of Lords Industry and Regulations Committee began its inquiry into the energy grid and grid connections by hearing from Charles Wood, Deputy Director, Policy to Energy UK. Collectively, they have reorganised and recognised that there is now such a huge backlog in oversupply of schemes waiting in the pipeline to be either offered a connection, waiting to be connected, having plans passed that NESO, who are the National Energy Systems Operator, have asked for proposed applications up to the end of May 2025. They are now talking about extending that deadline further into this year. Battery storage has now escalated to 258 gigawatts of possible stored energy. That's 35% of the queue. I would like Pendle Council to do their own research based on some of the information supplied to recognise and ascertain if Pendlebury Council fully understand the nation's and local issues which could have a material consideration in decision making on renewable energy and battery storage applications within the borough.
Councillor Sarah.
Just two seconds. Could I ask the Council to undertake its own research to evaluate the oversupply, backlog of connections and its own local infrastructure demand requirements of renewable energy and battery energy storage systems, and how the outcome could provide valuable informed data to help determine future planning applications and policies locally? Will the Council refer this petition and its own information, from its own information the Council gathers to be discussed at a future date of a full Council meeting or onto the Scrutiny Committee for discussion? Can I also ask the Council to engage with these national bodies of ESO, which is the Electricity Systems Operator, Ofgem, Office of Gas and Electricity Markets, ENA, Energy Networks Association, NESO, which is National Energy Systems Operator, and transmission owners.
You had your 5 minutes, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you.
has it gone that full?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
I will keep for orange bulb.
Thank you.
There's no way
Well,
of
thank you for
Yeah.
your time, everybody.
We've got the clock here.
All right.
Thank you.
But thank
Right,
you for your time,
Councillor
everybody.
Sarah.
It's really appreciated.
I read all this information this afternoon, and as you know, I'm chairman of the Climate Emergency Working Group, and I was a little surprised, and I wondered whether Mr Chapman had been slightly hyperbolic in presenting his case. But no, absolutely not. And it appears that as a country we are in a terrible mess. I was aware there was a backlog, but I hadn't realised how powerless it is for us in terms of Pendle and its next generation of local plan, but in terms of the nation as well. So I've already written to our Climate Emergency Officer, sent him some links, and asked that we discuss it at the next Climate Emergency Working Group. And perhaps we can then, when we've done that research and extra information, we can help bring a report to a future full council. And certainly I do feel that it's very important to feed in to the local plan. It's amazing. It was amazing to me that actually Ofgem say that potentially we have 3 times the amount of renewable energy schemes in terms of generative power than we actually need as a nation. That's phenomenal to 2050. So it's clear that Ofgem and other bodies are aware of this and are doing something about it, but we need to be taking this into account in Pendle.
Thank you. Councillor David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too read very carefully the information sent to us and listened carefully to Mr. Graham's contribution this evening. I am still at a loss as to what the petition actually says, because nowhere has the petition actually been succinctly set out. I'm not clear with the petitioners, the people who signed it, what they've actually signed, because there are pages and pages and pages of names, but there isn't anything on there that says what the petition is about. So you know, the petition is presented, but what on earth do the people write down as being the petition? Because there's nothing to say what it is.
Thank you. Any more speakers? Thank you. Thank you. Right, next item is minutes of the council.
Move those, Mr. Mayor.
19th December 24. Any second? No. Oh. Yes, Mr. Wait. Yes? We got it.
Have they been seconded, Mr. Mayor?
No, I'm asking you. I thought you got a second.
No,
Mr. Iqbal is seconded.
Right. Mr. Mayor, I'm grateful to the staff in drawing up these minutes, and I just want to draw attention to minute 47, which is on page 5, and it's the minute on the taxes. As you recall, and as is set out in the minutes, there was an initial vote on an amendment from myself, which was passed, and then, Mr. Mayor, as the minutes set out, you then allowed further amendments to the report which the monitoring officer said shouldn't have been taken, however they were. And then the amendment that was then put, Councillor Stone flipped from abstaining to supporting the amendment, said that the implementation of any act or substitute is suspended for 3 months. But the minute as written says that the implementation of or substitute is suspended until the outcome of meaningful dialogue with the trade was shown. Now, if we look back at the video of the meeting, it was quite clear that the intent of the amendment was to suspend for 3 months. Councillor Iqbal's shaking his head. But you only have to look to see the word 3 months uttered and included in the amendment. So I would move an amendment to the minutes to reinsert the 3-month timescale, which was included in the original amendment which was passed. Against my vote, of course, but nevertheless it was carried, but the minutes do not reflect that 3-month timescale in the record of the meeting. So I move an amendment to the minutes to insert 3 months rather than until the outcome.
Yeah, thank you. Just to clarify, I have the final say, so I allowed it. It's not a mistake. I'm the final person, so I allowed Mr. Nazim and Councillor Iqbal. So, thank you, Councillor Iqbal.
Mr. Mayor, my understanding is that when I...
Yeah, I've got a seconder, Mr. Wade.
Anybody?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
My understanding doesn't reflect what Councillor Wick has moved as an amendment. And I was the one that moved that further amendment, and it was a case of suspending until we had a meaningful dialogue. Okay, so my understanding is that the minutes are correct, Mr. Mayor. I would urge colleagues who want to get the amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Nadeem Ahmed.
I'm in a difficult position, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I do not recall exactly what he said. So I'm going to find it difficult to walk one way or the other, unless one of the officers could help with this. If anyone recalls what was actually said. Genuinely important.
Okay, is there any more speakers on it, yeah? Could we go for the vote?
Can we seek some clarification if anybody can assist?
Can you,
No,
Say it
not
again.
only from the council,
All right.
from the officers.
officer?
Well, Mr. Mayor, without reviewing the proceedings on the video, I'm clearly going off what the draft minute says. I haven't picked that up at the time. Hasn't been drawn to my attention subsequently. I can neither agree or disagree with what Councillor Whip's saying without viewing the video, and I don't suspect it's appropriate to suspend the meeting for that purpose. I think it's a matter for the council to decide what minute it feels is the accurate reflection of what happened at the meeting.
Councillor Sarah?
I wonder why it's not appropriate, given that a lot of us feel very strongly about it. It could be quickly solved, I'm sure. We could find the right part of the meeting and resolve it quickly.
You'll have to adjourn the meeting. You'll have to get a proposal to adjourn the meeting.
Any more speakers? So,
We have no right,
for the
okay.
vote?
Well, at the moment, Mr. Mayor, there is an amendment to the minutes, amendment to the proposal to pass the minutes. There's an amendment to that by Councillor Whip, which has been seconded. So we need to vote on the amendment that Councillor Whip's put forward in terms of what he says the wording of the motion was.
Could we go for Councillor Whip? All those in favour? All those against?
To do that again, please. Can we do that again, please? Sorry.
All those in favour? All those against? What is it?
12 in favour of the amendment, 7 against.
7 against, and 1 in favour.
That becomes a substantive motion.
Right,
So
okay.
the substantive motion is what Councillor Whip's.
Right.
So we now need to vote on the substantive motion.
So could we vote on the substantive
A substantive motion.
motion? All those in favour?
Keep your hands up, please.
All those against? What is it?
12 now. Yeah.
12-9?
Yeah. So that's carried and
That's carried.
the minutes are as moved.
Okay. So is it next one up? Next is the extraordinary council meeting held on the 29th January 2025.
Move those, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
Are we seconded?
Who seconded? Councillor.
Sorry, Councillor Whip.
Councillor Whip. Next is the special... All right. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I hesitate to rise again. No, I'll pass. It's okay.
Okay.
So what was in favour? In favour of the minutes.
All those in favour of the minutes? Against? Next is the special budget council meeting held on 27th February 2025.
Move those, Mr. Mayor.
Second?
Second.
Right. All those in favour? Have we come to?
Don't need to.
No, okay. Against? So next is announcement. Next is the right. An announcement from the mayor. As the Mayor of Pendle, I have continued to be very busy in the local community. I have been visiting and talking to those involved in numerous initiatives throughout Pendle. In January, I attended the opening of Solicitor's Practice in very impressive North Lighthouse in Briarfield. It is an honour to work with the young people of Pendle. In mid-January, I attended the grand opening of the sensory room at Primary School in Corn. In February, I was delighted to engage with more young people in Pendle, Youth Employment Service, Yes Hope in Nelson. Later the same day, I attended community project handover by youngsters on the Lancashire Fire and Rescue King's Trust scheme. The scheme is an excellent 12-week personal development program for unemployed and employed young people aged between 16 and 25. It develops young people for their education, progression in the workplace, or creative opportunities for those already employed. The particular community project handover was a great example of the young helping more elderly as the project was undertaken at the Age UK Lancashire Day Centre on Leeds Road in Nelson. During the same week, it was a privilege to visit a 100-year-old resident to mark their birthday at Marsden Grange Care Home. Nearing the end of the winter months, it was a delight to see the Spectre Winter Bloom Light Festival in Cork. Towards the end of February, I very much enjoyed meeting with the Member of Youth Parliament at Nelson Town Hall, and again at a Youth Council meeting at the Zone in mid-March. I am very grateful for all those who attended and enjoyed my Hollywood and Bollywood themed charity ball at the Fence Gate. The Helen Green Academy of Dance from Pendle did a wonderful showcase of Hollywood and Bollywood themed dances. My charity ball was a fantastic opportunity to have a great time for good causes. These good causes are mine and the Mayor's chosen charities, which are close to our hearts: Pendle Side Hospice and Armed Forces Sport Group. I was delighted to have Helen McVeigh and Louis Mayer from Pendle Side Hospice and Mike Sutcliffe and guests from Armed Forces Sport Group there on the night. At the beginning of March, I very much enjoyed participating in community iftars at Muhammadi Masjid in Nelson and the wonderful leisure walks in Briarfield. I am very proud of the collaborative working between my office and Burnley, Pendle and Rosendale Council Voluntary Service BPRCBS to host the Mayor's People of Pendle Volunteers Recognition Awards. It was a privilege to present local volunteers with certificate to recognize the fantastic work they do for the Pendle community. This is just a fraction of the activities I've participated in my last scope day. It is a privilege to highlight organizations that are doing a great job for the people of Pendle. Thank you. Mr. Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, first of all, can I just say thank you to you for your certificate of appreciation that you sent me over the weekend. That was very kind of you. Mr. Mayor, I would like to officially welcome Lawrence Conway, our interim chief executive, who is very experienced, very knowledgeable, already having very positive feedback from members, elected members, and also staff. And welcome to Pendle, and hopefully be working with you for the next couple of months to raise Pendle's profile, especially with the LGR that's happening. Thank you.
Questions on notice from the public to the leader? Sarah?
I would just like to say, Mr. Mayor, how grateful volunteers at the Co-Youth Action Group were for the award. Actual tears of eyes from people like Rachel in our kitchen. It was deeply, deeply appreciated. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any more questions to the leader? No? Right. Question on... No. Report by the leader on the work of the executive.
Move that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Councillor Whitman.
Councillor Whip.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report refers to Con Market Hall proposals for the future management and operations and development of the first floor. Mr Mayor, unfortunately this item was taken after exclusion of the press and public, and I was of the view that it could, at least in part, have been discussed in public, and I am going to raise the issues that I think should have been made public at that meeting tonight. Namely, it's the way in which the first floor of the market hall is used, and the initial proposal put forward by the previous administration during, well, I can't remember how long ago it is, but a few years ago, for the Levelling Up Fund, the proposal was to use the first floor to create new residential accommodation, or rather refurbish what was previously residential accommodation. As time has gone on, it's become increasingly apparent that that's not a practical proposition, and the current proposal, which has been accepted by the authority, is to use the first floor for workshop, artisan craft type studios and the like. And when this was discussed at the executive, some councillors expressed disappointment that the housing provision wasn't being made. And I asked last week, or was it earlier this week, I can't remember, but I've asked recently if the change of use proposal will be considered with an open mind by the Common District Committee, because clearly it is a departure from the current planning approval. I do hope, Mr Mayor, that there will be support for this change. I think it's necessitated by the potential disruption that there would be to any future residents from having residential on the first floor when there'd be busy, not only daytime use but evening use on the ground floor. And I hope, Mr Mayor, that the council will be unanimous in taking this forward, despite the reservations that were expressed at the executive. If I may, Mr Mayor, just as a follow-up question to the leader, ask if the arrangements for the tendering of the operation of the market hall and its future guise is on track, and will we be meeting the timescales that were set out in the executive report when it met a couple of months ago. So are we on track to actually get on with the operational side of the refurbishment which is currently underway?
Yes.
I can take all the questions and I'll come in at the end.
Any more questions? No. You want to answer?
Yeah. I'll just briefly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo what Councillor Whippy is saying about the change of use on the first floor with the Corn Market Hall. The original reason was because of the commercial sensitivities that we couldn't discuss it in public at the time. But as Councillor Whip mentions, it is a planning matter, so this will go to Core Committee for change of use, mainly because of the practicalities, mainly because of the noise element of it. And I'll seek advice from Philip through you, Mr Mayor, about the tabling process and whether that is on track. To my understanding that it is on track, well, I'll seek advice about.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through yourself, very, very briefly. I just want to kind of confirm that the tender for the market operator has now been issued. So looking forward to receiving a great deal of positive interest in that. In terms of timeline to reopen the market, the current plans will see the market reopen at the end of August. That's the time that we're working to at this moment in time. So please report positive progress we've made on both those two fronts at this stage. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Next is number 9, report by the chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Move the report, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor.
Moved it? Yeah. Second? Yeah. Next is number 10, Treasury Management Scrutiny Statement 25-26. To consider the attack report from the Director of Resources.
Mr Mayor, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I move the report as set out.
Have you got a second? Anyone second? Yes, all right. So we got a second. Yes, David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, a useful report shows where we're up to in terms of spending and borrowing. I note that, as you point out on the top of page 3, we're in this rather odd position now where our loans exceed the liability benchmark and we are over-borrowed, which results in excess cash and required investment. And obviously, we know from our budget exercises the other week and in recent years that we've been living off the interest we've been earning for that. So, living off high interest rates as well at the same time, which is not great for most people, but great for the council. Looking at the way interest rates are predicted to move over the last couple of years or so, obviously with all the inflationary pressures and Donald Trump trying his best to make life more exciting in the world, then interest rates are going to stay high-ish for a little while longer. And obviously, Pendle will be spending the money on the capital programme it's got. I noticed lots of good positive spending proposals coming forward there. That of course means that the CFR is rising. In the main report on page 8, you'll see the table there showing growing from basically 20-25 million up to over 30 million in terms of that. And so we are nudging on the limits of what we are allowed to borrow. So it could be tight. Obviously, the report proposes that we approve an appropriate operational boundary and a higher authorised limit as well. So, fully support the additional numbers in there. But obviously, just note that let's do our best to get these capital projects delivered and manage our cash and borrowings accordingly. But fully second the paper and support it.
All those in favour? Against? Next is the pay policy statement, to consider the attached pay policy statement for 2025.
Mr Mayor, I move the report and recommendations are set out.
Second? Nadeem? Yes, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you, Gary. Prohibited types of dangerous dogs policy.
May I move the recommendation and report are set out?
Second? Yes, Ross. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Next is the C&S recommendation, member code of conduct. Anyone to move?
Over to me.
Yeah. You move it. Second? No speakers. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Number 40, changes to scheme of delegation, exercise of powers relating to the land.
Mr Mayor,
Yeah.
move recommendation.
You moving? A second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Can I just ask one question, please? On para 16, we're talking about disposal of land and buildings. I know this is all good to help get the asset transfer program going. We've got market value of up to 100,000. What does that mean in relation to the book value? We often get rid of things like pound or so, which might be worth quite a bit more. So, is there anything we should consider about market value and book value in this or not?
Yes.
So obviously the market value and the book value are very different. The book value are a paper valuation based on the RICS code of practice. This is relating to the cash that we can generate from selling an asset. So up to what this is moving the current delegations because property have moved within the resources directorate. So this is saying up to a value of 100,000, a cash value of £100,000 delegated to me. Anything above that, we have to go through the normal process or with members decide.
Thank you.
All those in favour? Carried. Next is item number 15, notices of motion protecting disability benefits and defending the rights of disabled residents. To be moved by Councillor Iqbal, and could I make sure what everyone must have read? I don't want Councillor Iqbal going through this. Is motion. Is there anything else to be added? What's already we've got it on in front of every council, so I'm sure everyone can read it. Anything else, Mr. Iqbal, to add, or?
I think I need to move it forward, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
In terms of moving it, Mr. Mayor, just a few words. I mean, I'm not going to read through one, but you're right, people are ready. Mr. Mayor, this country was built on the back of helping those people that are less vulnerable and less fortunate than ourselves, and a lot of people in this country. But you've seen austerity since 2010, and we all thought with the election of the Labour government that was going to end, but sadly the Labour government are continuing the austerity that was started in 2010 by the Conservatives. And there's a direct attack on people that are vulnerable in this area. I mean, I know many people that are disabled and vulnerable, and I'm trying to be the council in these rooms as well. But to cut to the chair, Mr. Mayor, I think it's important that both our members of Parliament listen to what their councils and residents want and vote against the proposal introduced by the government. I move.
Thank you, Councillor Devitt.
Mr. Mayor, I'll second this motion. I think we do need to bear in mind that most of the people who will watch this council meeting are actually online, either live or in the future, and they won't have a clue what this motion is about because they don't have the piece of paper in front of them. So I do think it's important that an outline of what the motion is given, despite, Mr. Mayor, your instruction there not to say what it is. In terms of this motion, it is about opposing the government's welfare code, something that has been debated in Westminster as recently as yesterday. And the gaping hole in the argument, as far as I can see, is that our ageing population, and to be frank, I'm glad that we're all getting older because the alternative isn't very good. But our ageing population means that there are more and more people who depend upon the welfare provisions in order to be able to survive. And that means that people have greater disabilities, that means that people have greater ill health, and as such we need to actually face up to those demographic changes as a country and actually work out how we are going to afford to ensure that the people who are in need get the support, the safety net that they deserve. And I'm reminded of the adage about you can tell how civilised a society is by the way that they look after their own people. And I won't go any further on that, else I'll have to be declaring an interest. Mr Mayor, I think it's quite disgraceful how a party that was founded on social justice is now reneging on that compact, that contract with the members of our society, and as many people have said, are just becoming red Tories. I noticed that some of the Conservative councillors have left, and obviously they must not feel strongly.
Please keep it to the agenda.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I am.
Is there anything else you want to add, or?
Mr Mayor.
Yes.
Mr Mayor, I note that some of your colleagues, who you addressed on first name terms, when you addressed other people on Mr Whip, you know, I think you just displayed a little bit of favouritism there instead of being impartial. But Mr Mayor, that's entirely up to you. I think it's entirely up to me whether I refer to the absent councillors.
Please talk to me.
Some of whom have left before we discuss some of the most important issues on the agenda tonight. I think it's regrettable that this pattern of
Can we move on?
I think
if you're not anything,
regrettable.
let's go for the vote. Thank you very much. If you got anything else to add?
Well, I did, Mr Mayor, but I accept that the Conservative Mayor of this council is stifling debate on important issues.
Yes, Councillor Nadeem.
I will be supporting this motion, and I'm hoping all councillors who are present will be doing the same. I think in terms of the potential impact this will have on the most vulnerable in society are going to be significant. And I think all the promises we heard before the elections, I think, well, it's clear to see by everybody that'll just political electioneering. And just touching on the councillors who have left, I will raise this because I think the reason some members feel they don't apply, it's not that they don't care about the motion, because I think this is a really important motion.
Please talk on the motion. Don't forget about who's left. There may be a reason why they left.
Yes.
So thank you very much.
So this is a really important motion. But I think some of the other motions which we have tanting are the same motions which are just worded in a different way, and in my opinion should be ruled out of order, even though they are important. So I don't want people twisting and saying they're not important. They are really important issues which are being raised. But I think because we're seeing the same things, and it's just political game.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton Bumbu.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I think disability is a quite complex thing that people have different needs. People have different, you know, some disabilities are visible, some are not, some have mental health issues. And it's like I say, it's very complex. And the Resolution Foundation yesterday was saying people will be £500 worse off under the changes, and an estimated 250,000 people, including 50,000 children, will be living in relative poverty due to these changes. And like I say, these changes are not like Labour values. This is not what a Labour government should be doing. This goes against what Labour stands for. So I urge the 2 Labour MPs to also vote against the white paper when it comes to the Parliament. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
More chance of that.
Councillor Neil.
As my body I work a lot with old people. I'm in the care rooms most weekends with another young man called Lee Judson, and we go there singing and making the old people happy. These changes affect everybody, and there is some loopholes where people that are claiming benefits shouldn't, but the main ones, they actually cannot survive with these cuts. They just can't survive. There's so many people worried where the money's going to come from, and it's a mental health issue now. It's causing a mental health issue with some of the old people that I look after. I look after 27 people, and nearly all of them are worried about what this the pit's going to do to their lives. And if people could visit them and see how they live, they just live. Now, they don't have any phone, they don't do anything, they just survive. And it's awful going into an house and looking in the cupboards and there's nothing there. And it's demoralising, it's stupid. The food bank now, just give me food now, they don't even ask for it. And I take food for them. So these changes really matter to some people. To other people who have money or whatever, just live a daily life, it's fine. But to these people who are actually under the limit of living, you know, they can't put the fires on, I've had to remove a TV because they can't afford the licence. But through help from my friends, we've collated and we've got licences for 3 people. And this is what we have to do in a modern world. And these are the old people who lived in the old times, who went to work, early hours work, all day, paid the national insurance, right? I could go on and on, but I won't. So I'm going to support the motion wholeheartedly, and let's hope they change it. Thank you.
Councillor Neiman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Over the last few years I've worked amongst people that are very disadvantaged, and I think this is a total disgrace that the government has come up with these proposals, and I strongly recommend that Bengal Council to whoever is in charge, whoever the government, and strongly say that this is not acceptable to our local people or anywhere in this country.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor.
Yes, Mr Mayor, fellow councillors, I'd like to make a point on this. It wasn't so long ago that I had to go through the process and apply for PIP. The job I was carrying out meant I was actually unsafe to carry on due to ill health. And when I say it was dangerous, the job I was doing could have killed somebody. But I had to make that decision. It was a difficult decision to make. To step away from work, apply to universal credit, try and say I am ill, and the loopholes that I had to jump through, not for 6 months, but for 3 years. For 3 years, I was getting support from Royal British Legion, from various military institutions to help me apply to get qualified and apply for PIP. I ended up going to a tribunal. That tribunal, it was automatically overturned by the judge and the 2 people that was representing me, a doctor and a disability champion. I had 2 friends with me that day, one who's already claiming for PIP for having multiple sclerosis. She was just given the basic rate during the great lockdown that we had. She saw what I went through that day, she saw what I went through for 3 years, trying to ask the assistant for help. She turned around to me afterwards and said, "How are you still alive? Why are you still standing?" I said, "Because if I don't stand up with the help I've got, I'm just giving up. I'm giving it." The system helped me then, and I mean, it was so tight, I had to ask friends and family to bet food. I had to turn the gas off, the electric off, and I'm not lying. I struggled for 3 years financially, because the basic universal credit to give you the £300 a month is not enough to pay your gas, your electric, your water bills when that comes through. It is an absolute nightmare. So that PIP, when it came through, cleared a lot of my debts that I had built up over 3 years. But it also gave me an eye-opener. And from that point, I then decided to go to do a university degree. I'm in my final year of doing a business management degree. How this year's going isn't so great, but the first 2 years I've got a qualification and I'm happy I've achieved something. How will I be able to go forward? I was asked to stand as a town council, which I did, which I'm grateful for because I can help people. I was asked if I'd be prepared to stand in here and be a borough councillor, and I said yes, if I could help somebody. And there is a motion I'll be bringing up which I'll come on to. But with the last government, they did a paper that said, and he sent it out, he said, "How do you feel?" And I actually read it through and I tried to fill it in. I'm not a learning man. And some of them questions and some of them words, I had to get a thesaurus out, and a dictionary out, to try to understand what the questions they were asking. Some of the answers I actually put down and said, "I do not understand what you were asking for," because I couldn't understand it. And like I said, I'm doing a degree, and I could not understand what they were asking. The High Court, before we had the last general election, turned around and said that evidence gathering that they were asked for was actually illegal. It wasn't fit for purpose. They did not tell people what it was for, because they were looking at a change. It was then put to the new government, and they've done exactly the same and put a lot of people into a lot of misery, uncertainty. So I will quite happily put this motion. Thank you.
Could we go for the vote? All those in favour? Thank you. Next is Pendle priorities to be moved by Councillor D. Vick and second by Councillor C. Church. So we've got the already written, so anything else you want to add?
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Butterworth said that he makes people happy by singing at weekends, so I thought I'd take a leaf out of his book and I would sing, "Always look on the bright side of life." There we go. Thanks very much. Mr. Mayor, this motion is about local government reorganisation and the impact that it's going to have on the medium, short-term priorities of Pendle Council, and the need for this council to look again at its priorities because of the consequences of that LGR. It goes on to talk about the impact of local government reorganisations if there are larger unitary councils and larger footprints, which inevitably there will be, the erosion and loss of control by local residents about their services and facilities. And it therefore resolves that Mr. Conway is the interim chief executive, be requested to review the corporate plan, the policy document that the council works to, as a matter of urgency, with a view to an updated plan being agreed at the annual council in May. And the motion highlights as a particular priority an accelerated programme to localise assets and services important to local people rather than see them become transferred to a remote successor authority with a consequential reduction in local influence over them. So, Mr. Mayor, I said always look on the bright side of life. I can't see many bright patches in terms of local government reorganisation. I see services being hoovered up by ever more remote agencies, unelected agencies in some cases, or second-hand unelected agencies such as combined authorities. So local people are seeing those things moving away from them, decisions moving away from them. And we have a situation where perhaps we might have a Greater Blackburn deciding on what happens in Colne or Nelson or Barnoldswick or Briarfield, and the local people having very little influence over those decisions. Now, going back a decade, this council started a programme of transferring services and assets to local parish and town councils, and that's been quite successful. A significant amount of services, stuff, is now dealt with by those town councils and parish councils, and you can go through a long list of CCTV, parks, bus shelters, public conveniences, etc, etc, etc. We're now at a point where we risk going into a unity council that won't have parish and town councils in some places, and it'll be very lumpy. This is our opportunity, perhaps in the next 12 to 18 months, to look at what we can localise to parish and town councils in order that they do remain under local control. And I think that's very important. The wider issue here is that this council needs to look again at its priorities, because we're going to have to find resources in order to face up to reorganisation, find the staff, find the funding that will be needed in order to prepare this council, together with other councils, going into a new authority. And if we don't anticipate that, plan for that, prepare for that, then we will fail to make the impact that we need to do when it comes to discussing things.
Thank you, Mr. Whip. You made it very clear. It's already written, and you just repeated everything over again. Second by Councillor Seachurch.
Thank you for your impartial chairmanship again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In seconding this, I shall be brief. Firstly, to say even more briefly how disappointed I am that Yorkshire doesn't want our Northwick back. More seriously, I must say, I think this is one of those occasions when the obvious needs to be restated. In the next few years, there are going to be a million things whizzing across in front of our eyes, moving back and forth into who owns what, who controls what, and everything. Anything that we can do to establish our stance, our assets and our position as soon as absolutely possible, I would say is essential. Thank you.
Thank you. Our Chief Executive would like to say something.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a point of clarity, if I may. The motion is very clear, but I just want to make sure that and I don't want to predetermine anything at this stage, but I'm very happy to look at the corporate plan as a matter of urgency and look at the priorities. But just in case those priorities are still the priorities of the council, I just wondered whether it might be prudent on the second line where it says, with a view to an updated plan being agreed at the annual council in May, is whether we could insert the word updated action plan.
because that means that if the priorities are still the priorities, at least I'll be able to update the action plan based on the motion that's been proposed by Councillor Whip. Thank you. And I can see that there are things in there that you might want to accelerate and change because of local government reorganisation. Thank you.
Councillor Ashton Mahmood.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, as leader of the Council at the previous, last week's Executive Committee meeting, I asked for the Asset Transfer Working Group to be set up and meet very soon to work with all the town and parish councils in Pendle to protect our protect and control and keep control of our assets. And also, as at the budget, we proposed that we put in hundreds of thousands of pounds to kind of again work with the parish and town councils to keep assets in Pendle in control of the assets, and also, like I say, the key thing is we want to do it properly. You've got to work with all the parishes and town councils, and we've got to get it right, because we don't want to be like further a couple of years down the line things don't work out properly, and then they come back to Pendle Council and then the cost is even a lot more. So it's crucial that we get things done right and proper in the first instance. But
Councillor Nadeem Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will be supporting this motion. I think it's a very sensible motion and puts the interests of Pendle residents at its heart. So I will be definitely supporting this. One thing I just want to slightly take issue with. We talk about, well, we don't know what the new council, what it's going to look like, but I think some of us can foresee what the outcome will be. But in terms of reference to the Greater Blackburn, I think it's important that we do state that when the new council is formed, everyone is on an equal footing. So there will be no Greater Blackburn. I know in terms of numbers it might be, because they might be a bigger area and they have more councillors from their patch. But I think overall, all areas are starting from an equal footing. I think we need to make that, highlight that. But I'm more fan of this reorganisation. I don't think I'm too positive about where it's going to lead us. I don't think it's going to work, but we are where we are.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I fully support the motion that Councillor Rhodes put forward. My only concern, with my hat of Chair of the Parish Council at Foleridge, is the added expense that's transferred into parishes and towns where you could have the precept effect. For example, we took over a clay area from Pendle Borough Council into Foleridge Parish Council, and we had to pay a bill of £10,000 for refurbishment, and that was taken from local residents. So effectively, I had to put the precept up 50% that year to cover that cost. If we're taking and transferring more assets, there will be that knock-on effect. There will be the fact that if you've got more local assets under parish, especially parish, but parish and town council, you will have that knock-on effect where the precept will increase, which will have to then be passed on to the residents. And of course, the normal council tax increases will be on top. So there will be a cost to residents by transferring local assets. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Councillor Whip.
If I may respond to the debate, I'm very grateful for our interim Chief Executive from the officer group wanting to put an amendment in. And I'll just mention, Mr Conway, that it is not usual in this council chamber. It's the first time in almost 50 years that I've heard this happen. So I think it is unique, but I do gracefully accept the amendment proposed by the officer group, including the word action plan. I always like a good bit of action, so I think that's great. So to be clear, it would say an updated action plan. Mr Mayor, I'm grateful for Councillor Mahmood's support and Councillor Ahmed's support. But Councillor Ahmed went on to say that, all councils, all councillors will be equal, and my colleague to my right, Councillor Land, muttered, but some councillors will be more equal than others. And I think the risk is that the priorities for Pendle will be subsumed within an amorphous mass, and it will be very difficult for Pendle residents to get the sort of things that they think people in Pendle should be getting. Councillor Salter quite rightly pointed out the difficulties for parish councils in affording to take things on. I think for most small parishes, there is not a lot that can actually be taken on because there aren't the facilities or the services in the villages. But I reflect on the fact that most villages in Pendle were already running their own play areas, their own little parks, their own playing fields, long before Pendle Council came along and said, well, would you like a play area, would you like a playing field? So the likes of Blacko, the likes of Salter for time immemorial have had those assets and those costs as well. But there is a benefit to that local control because I honestly think that parish and town councils do a far better job than would be by a very remote and perhaps Blackburn-based authority, but who knows what we're going to get. So, Mr Mayor, I'm grateful for support around the room. I think that it is absolutely crucial that we make best use of Mr Conway whilst he's here and get a good look at, because Mr Conway knows he's been through this process, he will come with experience to be able to push things in the right direction so that we get the very best outcome for residents of Pendle in the reorganisation that faces us in the next months and years. I move. Thank you.
No more speakers? No. Could we all go for the vote? All those in favour? Thank you. Next item is, I'll bring the taxi safety next. Moved by Councillor B. Newman and second by Councillor M. Strickland.
Mr Mayor,
yeah.
Mr Mayor, the standing orders require that notice of motion are dealt with in the order that they are submitted.
Okay.
And the next one is
National
Health Service.
National Health Service. Moved by Councillor A. Bell and second by Councillor T. Church.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you. This is the one I wanted to bring up originally. Life expectancy health outcomes in this region in Pendle have been observed as being lower than any other part of the country. At the moment, there is inadequate preventive and primary care, including shortages of GPs, dentists and pharmacists, which continue to have a negative impact on the health of local residents. There is a chronic crisis in the acute services, with overrun A&E departments and failing hospital trusts. This was seen over the winter period when Blackburn had to declare an emergency. I witnessed going through there that they had a 17-hour wait, and I saw the amount of people on trolleys, in corridors, at A&E, waiting to be seen. I also witnessed it at Burnley, where you had somebody at the reception desk with a metal screen triaging because of the volume of people that were being ill. The recent announced changes to the administration of the NHS, together with the reported halving of budgets and the integrated care boards, will also have an impact. We do welcome changes within the NHS structures that will result in a better healthcare, but there is concern at the budget reductions, which will lead to a continual spiral of decline of treatment for Pendle residents. I know people who work for the NHS and they've been told they're not allowed to order post-its, they're not allowed to have the sandwiches on the brookie when they're doing a 12-hour shift. I've been on a ward recently where somebody's doing a 12-hour day and they're doing one-to-one with somebody with dementia. They are not allowed to leave unless somebody can take over. So that person would be sitting there for 12 hours, keeping an eye on one person, not allowed to go for a toilet break, not allowed to go for a tea break, never mind get sustenance. We'd also like to point out the lack of local democratic input in the reforms that have been announced, the continued growth underfunding of social care, the failure of successive governments to tackle the inadequate cross-border patient information and communication. The reason I'm bringing this up, one of my residents that I'm close with at the moment is now classed as terminally ill with cancer. She's also got a very complex conditions. Certain medications she can't take because she will have an allergic reaction to. It might be just mild sickness. Before Christmas she had a mastectomy. Since then, well before then, she was also diagnosed with second stage kidney failure. She went into hospital before Christmas, she went to Airedale because in 2007, 2008, when Burnley was downgraded and we were told in Pendle, you can go to Airedale or you can go to Blackburn. She was taken to Airedale because and this is where she found out that she had cancer. Before Christmas she had a mastectomy at Airedale. She loved the treatment, she thought it was brilliant. Since then, she had a chest infection. Secondary care, went up to the doctor's surgery and asked them to go down and visit her because she had a chest infection, she couldn't cough anything up. A month later she went back and said, are you going to send somebody down to visit her? She is seriously not well. They did the following day. I don't know, you've got a chest infection. We'll order some antibiotics. It took 3 days for the antibiotics to come through because she has such complex needs. The following day, got up in the morning, she went to the bathroom and collapsed. She was found about 4 hours later when a carer went in and she did not have her call lanyard on, which she said, I only took it off that once because I get entangled. They took her to Airedale. They had her on a body blow for 9 hours, which basically means she can't move. They said you've got pneumonia. A week later they kicked her out. The medication she was being put down her throat was medication she could not have. Since then she's been to Blackburn. They cannot see any record of her being in Airedale, what treatment she had. So there is a major problem when it's affecting people's health, which could be catastrophic if not lethal. If the information between the two trusts that we've been told we can use cannot see what's gone on, and they cannot see what medication they've been given. Another patient I know was told that she could have an
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your time.
You want a second by Councillor Church?
Mr. Mayor, I second. There really is nothing that I could add to that, or I think anyone else could. So I'll leave
Thank
it
you.
down. Thank you.
Councillor Neil Butterworth.
Thank you. I agree with my colleague there. I've been in and out of hospital. I'm still attending hospital now. For 3 years I've been in and out. I shouldn't become a doctor. I agree with the communication side of it because my first bout of whatever was in Airedale. Amazing. And then the Yorkshire hospitals do not communicate with the Lancashire hospitals. So when I went to Blackburn, they again had no record of me and all the treatment I was on. So I too was on a trolley in a corridor for 2 days. So I know exactly where it's come from. And 2 trolleys down, a young lady, well, old lady, sorry, passed away. So the NHS is definitely broken. How do we fix it? Well, we'll take better people, men, women than living today to fix it. It's it's just so hard to get through to people. Simple communication between one hospital and another in this era is, with the computers is easy. It's a push of a button. But for some reason, Airedale do not communicate with Blackburn. So I do agree with my colleague. Thank you very much.
Councillor Nadeem Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think I will be supporting this motion. Councillor Bell spoke really well, as other councillors on this issue. And we've all got experiences of our own stories about how our loved ones or ourselves, personally, those of us who have used services, the experiences they have, and the real difficulties people face on a daily basis. And just specifically in terms of the communication point, I was going to make the same point as Councillor Butler and Councillor Bell. In terms of the communication, my son was in Blackburn last year, and when he got referred to Manchester Children's Hospital, Manchester Children's Hospital didn't have a clue as to what treatment Blackburn had been given, and it took them probably about 12 hours to find out exactly what drugs had gone into him. And I found that really, really scary, because there's no communication, and that's the computer system. I think that the government keeps talking about that, needs upgrading, so there's better communication between the hospitals. So, yeah, wholeheartedly support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Nadeem Ahmed, but thank you for your story. How could we are here for 1 hour? I've been through as well. So, Councillor Dewitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support Councillor Andy Bell's motion wholeheartedly. The bit that we didn't get to was about the inadequacy of primary health facilities, particularly in West Craven. And in Barnoldswick, there's a so-called clinic, the Newtown Clinic, which, as members have heard previously, is rattling around, not half empty, not 3/4 empty, but 90% empty, because there is only a single health service using that, and at vast expense they converted an old bank into a empty clinic, and what a waste of money that is, and what a criminal treatment or non-treatment to people in West Craven, patients in West Craven, who should be seen on the doorstep, but are having to travel over perhaps the Yarnsmith Wall or Colne or even further afield. Mr. Mayor, I mentioned that the other councillor whip is in Airedale, been there since last Wednesday, and yesterday there was going to be a self-discharge, and the nursing staff discussed that and persuaded that it shouldn't happen. Mrs. Whip and I are there, ready to facilitate the escape, if that's what it was going to be. And unfortunately, Mrs. Whip collapsed twice on the ward, and we ended up at accident emergency. And the accident emergency department wasn't as overrun as we have seen at Blackburn in the past, although I suspect there was quite a lot of hidden stuff. We do know that there were 5 ambulances queued up outside, and the wait was relatively short for Alison, in that we were only there like 2.5 hours, and a lot of other people would have been there a lot longer. And I cannot fault the diligence in which the medical staff dealt with the problem. Unfortunately, Alison is none the worse for her experience, and is okay at present. Unfortunately, Councillor Whip, who was due to be discharged this afternoon, and I trotted on to do the deed and went to I call it the departure lounge, but that's perhaps a little bit inappropriate. It's the discharge lounge. to find that the patient is flat on a bed and not very well at all, and I, at this point in time, don't know whether they've done a discharge or whether I'm going on later on or what, but at the moment, not very well. So we're all telling these stories. The health service is now the National Sickness Service. It's not a service that any one of us wants to use, and we find that it's quite difficult at times. The most cost-effective reform that the government could bring in is this issue that Councillor Bell raised about the transfer of patient documentation. It was something that was raised yesterday in terms of the crossover between Airedale and the systems over in Barnoldswick, and that was a factor in not discharging at that point there. If there wants to be some real improvements, if they could concentrate on that single aspect, it would have the most cost-effective, beneficial impact on the whole of the problem. But as for the rest of it, I despair. I remember when we had community health councils, I'm going back a bit.
Thank you,
primary care trust. Let's have democracy.
Thank you. Councillor Ashir Mahmood, please keep to the agenda. The motion very clear. I'm sportive, everyone's sportive. Don't tell another story. Thank you.
I fully support the motion, Mr. Mayor. I think just to say that, originally Blackburn Royal Infirmary was, Royal Blackburn Hospital was originally built to replace the Royal Blackburn Infirmary and not to replace the whole of Burnley and Blackburn hospitals. There's a catchment area of about 600,000, maybe 650,000 population. It is physically too small to accommodate the number of patients that we have in our catchment area. And over the last 30 to 40 years, approximately 50% of hospital beds have been cut. And that's a fact, and I think that also contributes and has a knock-on effect on the accident and emergency delays and the health effects that has. Mr. Mayor, I think that GPs also need to open up fully all their services, and I think the key area that needs to be reconfigured or remodelled by local and national health services is the prevention aspect. Because if you don't get the prevention done, you will continue to get these issues and problems, especially the long-term conditions. So we need that prevention to be implemented. In relation to the communication, with my other hat on and obviously declaring interest in that sense, the East Lancs hospitals went digital with their notes about approximately 2 years ago. My understanding, and don't quote me on this, my understanding is the same system that was implemented over at Airedale. So you would have thought there is that communication of the hospital notes. And in relation to, say, radiology, I mean, that's been happening for many, many years, so I'm quite surprised to hear some of the stories, because you only need one phone call or an email to say, can you send certain scans or results across, and it's a touch of a button.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually appreciate the voices of support that I've heard here tonight. With relation to the information, today I spoke to a district nurse, this lady is due to come out of hospital. They would not release her unless certain care packages were in place, a hospital bed was in place, but the communication between various agencies wasn't going to plan. I was approached, which I did, I spoke to the district nurses, so we're able to get things moving, so this lady can come home. She doesn't want to be in hospital, she's coming to end her life, and she wants to be at home, she wants to be comfortable, she wants food that she can eat. What's needed about the hospital food. When I was speaking to the district nurse, she was completely unaware that she'd been in Airedale only 2 weeks ago, and she could see her notes on the computer in front of her. So I know, let's say we've got communication today where I can send anybody a text message, I can ring up, or I can send an email, but this information of, which can be quite important and life-saving or life-destroying, is not accessible either way. I know over West Craven we've got issues with pharmacies, we've got issues with trying to get a doctor's appointment. We keep hearing off the government there's 2 million more appointments. But we're also hearing we're going to get rid of the NHS England, so that's going to take a quango away. At the moment, we're looking at 30,000 redundancies now. But with the new, as Nara said, national insurance contributions that the NHS is going to have to pay, that's a lot of money they've got to find. It's taken it away from the services that people at Pendle need. Not just need, it's a life requirement. So I'd like to say thank you very much for the votes that have been raised. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Could we go for the vote? All those in favour? Thank you. Next motion is road and pavement repairs. No.
Planning and infrastructure.
Right, planning. The planning and infrastructure bill to be moved by Councillor T. Whitman here. Or is it Councillor D. Whitman going to propose and second by Aslan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I understand your desire to get the meeting over with as soon as ever you can. This is a key resolution. It's about the ability of local residents being able to comment on, influence decisions that have been made about the places where they live. The planning and infrastructure bill includes within it measures that would remove residents' rights to be able to comment on planning applications. And if I read this aright, councillors won't be able to get involved with unless applications for developments of greater than 100 houses. Now, we do have some large applications in Pendle, 1 or 2 of them, of over 100 houses. Most of them tend to be much lower than that, and they tend to be quite controversial. Now, far be it from me, because obviously Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner think that we are an impediment to development. But as an authority, I think we have an outstanding record in terms of the timeliness of decisions. I think we've got the top performing council in the country as far as that's concerned, and there are hundreds of unbuilt planning consents in Pendle. So, Pendle or Pendle Council and the residents in Pendle aren't holding up development. It's the developers who are reading the market and building appropriately. Now, in my own ward, there are currently, about 150, perhaps more houses actually being built, and that's quite a significant number given that Pendle's annual number, the standard methodology number was 148. So, there's a whole year's supply being built in one particular ward. So, the second reading of the bill is next week, on Monday, I think, and this resolution asks that our MPs in Pendle support the residents' rights to comment on planning application and take part, as at present, when people come to committee, address committee and seek to inform committee about what the issues are with particular applications. And we ask the MPs to support the continued input of local elected representatives in planning matters. So, Mr. Mayor, I am subbing for my family colleague here. I don't think I've done it as comprehensively as would have been wished, but nevertheless, I move.
Second by Councillor Aslan.
Briefly, I'd just like to second this motion, and I'm disgusted that local people will no longer have any input when they're the people who actually know the area and what housing is needed in the area, not just what developers might think will bring them the most profit. And we also have the most expert information on what the suitability of that land is around here. And that is really important when we're being judged from afar. And what we're ending up with are sprawling extremities to all our little towns and villages, effectively joining them together if we don't have this say about our own local housing. Thank you. I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Any more speakers? Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is, of course, fundamental to public engagement and local democracy that the public are able to engage and feel that there is a point in them engaging either through the democratic process or particularly through the planning process. And we know that nothing engages the public more than the planning process. And we have all, as councillors, worked together to operate in the best interests of the public and Pendle in accordance with the NPPF, and we've always done that because we want to ensure that planning in Pendle is appropriate and proportionate. And it is a great shame that this government is engaging in industrial scale sabotage of not just local democracy through LGR, but also, of course, of planning and housing. And we will all, I think, always strive to put the interests of residents and interpret the planning policy in a way that is suitable for local people in the context of Pendle. So I thoroughly support this motion and thank you for bringing it to Council.
Thank you. Councillor Nadeem Ahmed.
Thank you. This is just another example of Labour government's policy of not engaging and making sure local people don't have a say. We've seen earlier on in the motion in terms of local government reorganisation. That's just another example, and this, yet again, is another example of the road this Labour government is going down. And if local councillors and residents will not have a say on planning matters locally, these are the people, as Councillor Anders said, are the people who have local knowledge, the local expertise, and to stand up for residents. I think it's difficult enough now in the current system as it is, in terms of trying to stop overdevelopment in our areas, but this will just simply open floodgates, and we need our MPs to back us on this.
Thank you. Councillor Ben.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, councillors. It was only a couple of weeks ago that I was at the Colne Town Full Council meeting, and we get the planning permission, planning permits that come through asking we want to build this or want to change something. And I'm reading through, we put our input in as a town council. We don't say yes you build it, no you're not, but we do put our feelings across when we discuss it. So then it goes to the planning, it goes to the area committees. A couple of days later, I was scrolling through social media, and there was a house that came up, and it says, this land is for sale, it's got planning permission to build 5 houses, or a 5-bedroom house. And I queried it, thinking, is it one that we've just seen? It turns out it wasn't, it was just the same area. And it turns out that this house had been asking for planning permission, or you're the owner, planning permission 3 years prior. Nothing been built. Now he's decided to sell the land. But this land's now got planning permission. This planning permission now means that that land is more valuable. They're not actually coming to us and saying, we can see the need. We need to build a house here. They just wanted to plot it up and say, I'm going to get more money from that. When I saw it, I thought, you wouldn't build on that. And I know that because I've been in the crane industry for 18 years, 20 years later. And I've looked at it and thought, okay. So like I say, there's so many planning permissions that have gone in, asking to build houses and not been built on, because they're looking at it as a quick buck later on. Let's get more money later. So when we look at it, we say, you know, we need to build more houses. We've got a lot that have already gone through with permission, and they have not carried it through. There might be a property that looks like it should be derelict and should be knocked down, because they've had planning permission but not done any work, because they know in a couple of years' time it's going to be more valuable to them to resell with planning permission. And there's nothing there that next owner will utilise that planning permission. So I agree with, we need local input. I also think we should actually start chasing these developers who ask for planning permissions to actually get the work moving. Otherwise, we're losing it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank everybody else and back you all in what you're saying. I know that we've got next week, we're going to have a very difficult time over at the West Craven, where we're going to, there's a lot of planning permissions coming up for developments, and West Craven area, as Councillor Witt already said, we're oversaturated. So in my mind, I would just like to stop all planning permission for the next 5 years, at all, completely, and work on infrastructure. Get them to build the pharmacies, get them to build the hospitals, the doctors' surgeries, the outpatients departments, and everything else. We don't need any more houses, and the government wants to take that away from us. So in my mind, the money would be far better spent building infrastructure rather than building houses that nobody wants or needs. Thank you.
Thank you. No more speakers. Could we go for the vote? All those in favour? Thank you. Next is road and pavement repairs. To be moved by Councillor D. Hartley and second by Councillor D. Lord.
Thank you,
yes, Mr. Hart.
I'll try and make it brief.
Please.
I know
Thank
we're
you.
on the clock. I would like to move that the Council notes that the continued downward spiral of the condition of local roads and pavement, despite claims that record amounts being spent on resurfacing, and that the administration at County Hall has constantly failed.
I can read all that, Mr.
Hartley.
So if there's anything else you want to add, please.
Oh, I should.
I'm reading
5
on
minutes,
this.
so I'm all right.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to continue. So the Council also notes that payments and improvements are being carried out in some Pendle townships despite Lancashire County Council's refusal to fund the work. And this work is funded by Pendle Council with the United Kingdom Shared Prosperity Fund. Money's put Lancashire County Council efforts to shame with your short-lived patchwork potholing approach. Therefore, the Council resolves to put on record its dismay for the continuing unsatisfactory states of the pavements and streets in Pendle and wasteful pothole bodging with the County Council, and to be advised accordingly. So like the majority of you here tonight, my message box pings with complaints on a weekly basis, well, basically on a daily basis, from local residents that are fed up to the hind's teeth with the state of our county's roads. Photographs of gaping holes outside their houses are on their way to work, and the disgraceful state of Lancashire County Council has allowed our pavements and roads to become. They are asking where is their money that they pay council tax going to be spent? Why isn't it being used wisely? And why aren't effective repairs to our roads and streets being carried out? This is despite Lancashire County Council stating that they are spending a record amount on highway repairs and potholes over the next 3 years. £45 million, according to County Hall, on the 27th of February this year. Now that's 15 million a year, and considering the vast size of Lancashire and the state of its roads, isn't very much. According to their own figures, Lancashire County Council needs to spend a minimum of £160 million just to bring the roads up to scratch. So 15 million for 1 year is less than 1/10 of the amount which is needed. The Prime Minister then dangled a carrot on a stick in front of the noses, telling them that councils should have to prove their actions on the pothole plague to unlock extra cash, and reveals on the 44.8 billion pot of major roads. This isn't a computer game for Lancashire County Council to play to gain access to the next level of funding, and the £48 billion might as well be the leprechaun's pot of gold waiting at the end of the rainbow. Now, don't get me wrong, I could see that County Hall rubbing their hands together as they rushed to fill the potholes and they reported on their Look My Clean Street out, just in order to tick the boxes for the forthcoming elections. It might as well have hidden an extra Kian's promised pot. Filling the halls with substandard materials and patching might as well be filled with popcorn and treacle from the Southern treacle mines, because there's much use of the repairs of what they're putting in, which is just being washed away and down to block the drains. However, I would like to give credit where credit's due. In my own town this year, we've had one pavement resurfaced, and although halfway down the Victoria Road, it was an amazing job. I'm sorry that was funded by Pendle Council and the funds because Lancashire County Council refused the funding. But the work done there by brewers, and I'll have to mention them because they deserve recognition, the work that they have done is truly outstanding. And as a bonus, they also managed to renew the road surface outside Ely Surgery at the same time, the dangerous unstable road ignored by County Hall. In August last year, the Lancashire Post reported that the worst roads in Lancashire were not one of them was east of Blackburn. With 95% that were in and around Pendle, Preston and Blackpool. So I'm asking the Council tonight to back my proposal to put in writing to County Hall expressing officially our pure dismay and disdain about the fact that they care nothing for our roads, streets and pavements in West Craven, and that Pendle continue to be neglected, and it's a disgraceful waste of taxpayers' hard-earned money on their continued attempt to fudge repairs on the plague of potholes that should have been fixed properly in the first place, saving everybody time and money. Thank you.
Thank you. Second by Councillor D. Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to focus on one stretch of pavement, which is on my street. It was dug up probably the length of this room. It was all dug up, it was all piled up, and it was an electricity company that was, I went up to have a look and I said, I hope you're not going to tarmac this, are you going to put it all back? Yes, we are. What's the problem? Well, it's just this bit of a wire here, the whole plain street was dug up. Today, when I went up, and I noticed when I looked out at the front door, everything had been put back, signs removed, and it looked fantastic. When I walked up today, I was taken back to the 70s. It was like crazy paving. It was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. The paving slabs, which are Yorkshire stone, were all broken. They were cemented back together with something that was a funny colour, and it was just dreadful. And while I was sat here now, I was just thinking back when Scott Morley, well, I wasn't in charge of 9X, but I think Scott was, and when 9X came to Colne 25 years ago, you know, the green boxes, and it was, Tony Breeze appointed me as chair of this 9X working group. That was my very first job. I tell Scott, I taught him all he knows. And we went round together, and the slightest trick or broken paving, you know, when they reinstated everything, if it was wrong, it would be done again until they got it right. That's how it was then. It's not like that now. Nobody cares. No, you know, jobs are just slipshod. It's dreadful, absolutely dreadful. And until we
really address this, it's just going to either be the same or worse. You know, you've got contractors coming in from nowhere near here, so they don't care. I care about what my street looks like because I live there, you know. So, yeah, I fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm actually all in favour of this motion. The reason being is we all, I say we all drive. I'm making the presumption that most people here drive. And we all hear, you know, the horror stories of broken struts, broken springs, the cost to repair the vehicles. But we also know about the walking. If Councillor Sarah Coleman-Price was here, she would probably agree with me. In front of the parish church, we've got lovely stone paving slabs. When they come and dig it up, they put black tarmac down here, it looks a right state. But she will fight to county and say, you've got to put it back to how it was. It takes me a long time to do, but until then it looks a right mess. But going back to the roads, I go around the same roads on a bike. And if I go the same road in a car, I get a bit of a jog, so a bit of a jogger. But when you're on a motorbike, that's actually lethal because you get someone going to throw the front wheel out, you're going off the road. It's actually lethal. I know there was a motion passed not so long ago about having the motorway looked at. But the roads that we live with also need checking as well. They need to be done right first time. And I agree that the money should be put there to make it right first time, and not to make an absolute bodge job where it's going to, somebody's going to lose their life. We don't want that. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. If there's no more speakers, could we go for the vote? All those in favour? Thank you. Next is the taxi safety. It will be moved by Councillor B. Newman and second by Councillor M. Strickland. Yeah? All right.
I wasn't here when that happened, but two actually took place, so I'd like to declare inquest on this item.
Thank you.
Right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Taxi safety. That just brings a whole lot of things to people's minds. Some good, some bad. It's a very important part of the taxi trade that it's a safe taxi trade. Some of it, the implication of the taxi licensing, as far as I'm concerned, is not fit for purpose. I think we've had meaningful dialogue. I've had a report from the taxi people, which we have inwardly digested, and we are now waiting for the committee that was set up to come back to us, because we've got the recommendations that the taxi people want, but we have other things to sort out as well. So the only thing I can say at the moment is that it's an ongoing process, but it's been far too long and it needs sorting. Okay, right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, me again, because Councillor Strickland is still travelling back from far-flung workplaces, wherever they may be. The motion sets out that it's 3 months since the use of an app to record daily safety checks was suspended, pending that meaningful dialogue. We heard earlier in the meeting that the suspension was for 3 months. And here we are, 3 months after suspending it for 3 months. My understanding, and Councillor Newman will correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the liaison meeting is next Tuesday, I think it is, or perhaps Wednesday, next Wednesday, the 2nd of April. So 3 months down the line, we're no further forward with this. It's actually 12 months since this council passed a motion requiring the introduction of tougher taxi safety measures, and here we are 12 months down the line and we still haven't achieved anything. Of course, I don't need to remind members that the hiatus, the disagreements within the Conservative group and the dissatisfaction by a former member of this council led to a by-election in Vivery Bridge and the election of Councillor Bell, who sat next to me. So there's quite a lot tied up with this. And this motion recognises that there are continued delays. It also talks about the national standards, or the absence of national standards, and the subsequent shopping around for licences, which Wolverhampton is one of the favoured locations for people to go for the licence. But that there are inadequate controls inherent in the current system, and that undermines confidence in taxi safety. And the motion also goes on to say that the new structures in local government may lead to different arrangements being put in place. And there is talk of regional mayors being the responsible body for taxi regulation. So who knows what's going to come out of that. So the resolution is that a detailed report on these issues is presented at the earliest opportunity to the Taxi Licensing Committee, and that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is requested to review the current local and national arrangements as soon as possible. Mr. Mayor, I think most people know my views on this. I don't think we've gone far enough, and that as a consequence we do have unfinished business in terms of making the taxis in Pendle as safe as ever possible. I believe this council will continue to procrastinate if we are not careful. I think that this motion is intended to move the issue forward and not set us back. But let's not be here in another 3 months' time and we still haven't got resolutions on these outstanding issues. We owe it to the people of Pendle to ensure that we have as safe a stock of taxis as ever possible. I second.
Thank you. Councillor Neil Butterworth.
Good evening. After being on the Taxi Licensing Board for 17 years, I see no change. Working groups, look at the records, they're over. The carrot and the stick, over. We will be here, and I can guarantee you, we'll be here in a year's time with the same situation that we're in now. There are many people here that have been chairman of the taxi licensing, including myself, that can't seem to change it. Whichever way we go, they seem to, I don't know, just wriggle out of this, wriggle out of that, and carry on. If there was a company, I'll just give you an example, some of the results of the spot checks has been 95% failed. 95% failed. And it's dropped a little bit sometimes and then it's gone back up. If this was a public company, a bus company, or a train company, they would be out of business. There's that many taxis now all fighting for the dollar with the prices and things. It's getting even worse. Sometimes they try and lower the age of the vehicles so they can buy them cheaper and put them on the road. But it doesn't matter what age they are, you still don't maintain them. One of the councillors that was chairman went to one of these spot checks and he leaned against his car and the car rolled with the handbrake on. So this is just a sort of state. I reprimanded a taxi operator this vehicle had 3 bolt tyres, and on the good tyre had 1 nut holding it on. The standard of these taxis are horrendous. No matter what anybody said, somebody comes back to me out and says this and that and the other, these are all facts. You can look them up, you can look at the spot checks, you can ring the taxi office tomorrow. Has there ever been a time that I can remember that they've gone like 50%? But that's too high. 5, 10, 50%, it's a car. You can have an MOT, drive out, and then it will fail the next MOT the next day, because it's a mechanic thing. But when these people know that when the police pull a car in for a spot check, they're on the radio and the whole world knows the spot check, so they all try and hide, try and get out. So this will happen again and again and again. So whether I'll be here next year is another factor. But I guarantee you, if I'm not here, this problem will be here. What we should do is have a little bit of a more firm hand. I'm a great protector of drivers, taxi drivers. Some of my colleagues here took 2 years to oil people to look after the tyres. 2 years. And people knew will back me up. 2 years. Pestering every time spot check. Bolt tyres, bolt tyres, bolt tyres, bolt tyres. Because my belief is this, the driver is very important. It takes grunts out the middle of the towns, very important. It takes people where they want to go, very important. But the most important thing is, if they're driving a taxi vehicle with bolt tyres, or are speeding, wet roads, the first person to die is the taxi driver. So all these years I've been pestering our friends, and I've had some very nice comments, and I've had my car damaged and that. Not saying who it is or what it is or why it is, but what I'm saying is, they should realise we are trying to protect them as much as anybody else. You know, I have a lot of taxi driver friends, and I wish them well. They have families, they have to earn a living, and with the amount of taxis that are coming into the town, because now you can get a licence in Nottingham and still come and drive in Pendle. It's a crazy world we live in, but we must have a firm hand. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Iqbal.
Mr Mayor, the fact of the matter is that Councillor Salter, myself and Councillor Green and Councillor Strickland were at the last tax licensing meeting. And I think we all commented on the mission proposal from the trade the first time was a comprehensive report from the trade, which looks to address some of the issues raised. But the delay on the meeting wasn't down to the trade, and Councillor Salter will confirm that it was getting our diaries together in terms of 3 councillors that were serving on that working group. The meeting's been set for next week, and there are a number of things on that meeting that will address some of the concerns raised. But I'm just slightly looking at this motion, and it says that it goes to the next, there'll be a report going to the next tax licence meeting anyway. But if it's going to overview and scrutiny now not due to meet until the new annual year starts in May. So they will have a meeting, there'll be a report back to this council with their recommendations or to the executive. That will delay things further. I mean, I'm happy to support the motion tonight, but I think the opportunity for us to meet the trade next week, based on the paper that they've submitted, is something meaningful and realistic that this council can really take forward. But let me just correct Councillor Butterworth on the 95% failure rate. That happened under his colleague's watch, who's no longer a colleague in his council. And he's wrong when he says the failure rate has never been below 50%. I'd advise him to check the records, and it has.
What year, sir? May I ask what year?
It was under a Liberal Democrat chairman.
So what year was that roughly?
About 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Before your colleague took over.
5 years ago.
Thank you, Councillor Aber.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to reiterate with what Councillor Wolf said. My background is I've got a coach licence, I've got a crane licence, I've got a Class 1 licence. And the primary thing when I was in the military was you check your vehicle before you go anywhere. If I was working on buses like I have done in Cambridge, before that bus went out of that yard, I had to go and check everything on that vehicle. Be it the water, the oil, the brakes, any lights that are dashing, that are working, or they're not working. I had to write it down, because I would actually be found culpable and then it'd be a case of you've not taken it out, you've reported it, great, that's not on the road until it's repaired. If I was to set the vehicle out and it was found to have faults, I would lose my job at the worst case. Now, the worst case is I take a vehicle out which is not fit for the road, and I've got 52 passengers on, that's 53, yes, including my own. That is worst case situation. If you look after your vehicle will look after you. Last year, I have a resident in Colne that took a taxi, she's infirm, and she went to Sainsbury's. And they took a different route there. She asked what's going on. Oh, town centre's closed. She thought nothing of it. They took her home at the end of the shopping, said, I need to go into town. I need to go to the bank. The bank was looking at closing. So he said, yeah, I'll take you up, no problem. He took her up the back roads and dropped her on the Dockway Street car park. I said, she's elderly, she's infirm. When she walked past the library and found that the taxi licence officers were doing a spot check, one car was to be seen there. In the taxi, he was saying the road is closed because the taxi spot check was doing the job of doing a spot check, but the problem is, one got on the radio, no taxis was available in that area until they moved out of the area. I think they went to Nelson, next thing you know, an half an hour later, the taxi rank was full again. I agree that there needs to be more, like I said, Councillor Neil was saying, you need to be further. We need to put things in place to save lives, not just to save them up, because we need to tell you, if you're going to save lives, that's more important. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, yeah, I agree. It's the delay is down to the councils with Councillor Strickland working, trying to get a team together on a set date. We have 3 or 4 dates. We managed to bring up next week a date where we can all meet up with the trade. They have produced a report so far on what their ideas are. But just to clarify for me, I'm supporting the information, but the council resolves that a detailed report on these taxi safety issues is presented at the earliest opportunity to the taxi licensing committee. Where's the detailed report plan to be coming from? Is this report as well as the working group that's getting together?
It's supposed to be coming from the committee that's been set up.
So the working group will provide that. That's the report we're talking about here.
Yes.
Thank you. That's all. But I support the motion as well.
Councillor Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make a couple of fairly simple points. I think all councillors, all of us here, are in favour of taxi safety. Not a single one of us isn't in favour of taxi safety. But what seems to have happened is that a group of councillors have become obsessed with an app and have equated taxi safety as meaning an app. The council meeting where we discussed this, some of us felt that meaningful dialogue was more important than foisting an app upon an unwilling trade. And I'm very glad to hear that the trade have come up with some ideas which will go to taxi licensing, and those ideas have come precisely because of the meaningful dialogue, not because of this fabled app, which incidentally we didn't vote to suspend the use of because it was never in use at the time anyway. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't think this is a very well worded motion. I'm happy to support, of course, the substance of it in the sense that we are all in favour of taxi safety. But there's no point in pretending that the app is the answer to everything. It's not a panacea for anything. Actually, it's far more constructive to engage the trade, and it seems that we have got some constructive results from doing that. Mr. Mayor, the other thing I want to point out is that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, makes its own decisions. I'm sure Councillor Church, as chair, would concur. So again, that is a decision that the committee will have to make itself. And the resolution of the detailed report, well, as Kevin said, that report is coming anyway, and it's coming because of the meaningful dialogue. The much derided meaningful dialogue is leading to the proposals that will go to the Taxi Committee, and I welcome those. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no more. Councillor Nadeem Ahmed.
Mr Mayor, this is a really important issue, which we all agree on, as Councillor Storm mentioned. I think we all want road safety is a paramount consideration, and it is, and we all agree on that. But we just keep bringing this thing forward yet again, Mr Mayor. We're discussing tax issue. There's already a resolution from full council, which the taxi licence committee are looking into. They've had dialogue, and it sounds like for the first time after many years, there seems to be something really positive of substance, potential substance, that's come forward from the trade. I know it's been lacking in the past, but I think we've got something that's come forward, which the taxi licence committee will consider in due course. And I think this is just, I don't even understand why it's here. I mean, you don't really say much, you just say something which is already happening. I'll support it. And the point Councillor Iqbal made in terms of going to all the exclusions committee, well, send it there, fine. It's just good to let them do more, but it's fine if that's what they want to do. I support that, it's just nonsense.
Any more speakers? Could we go for the vote? All those in favour of the motion? Against? Thank you. Now, final thing from myself being in the chair.
Mr Mayor, an emergency motion has been submitted.
Is it? Oh, right. Okay. I was just about to say anyway. Hang on. Being in the chair, and I wish Councillor T with good health and good, quick recovery, and we need to see him back in the chambers.
I'm missing it.
Yeah, Mr. Whip as well. Thank you. Right. So, the urgent motion moved by Councillor B. Whip. Councillor Bell.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Mayor. If I read this like as verbatim, it's reference to Santander bank closure in Colwyn. The council notes that the announcement by Santander UK that they're closing their Colwyn branch on the 14th of July this year. Council resolves to have urgent discussions with the bank to try and stop the closure, and to contact Link to request that a banking hub is provided in Colwyn. This is moved by me, Mr Mayor. One thing I'd like to point out for this one is they've turned around and said they're closing 95 branches in the UK, which is going to lead to 750 unemployed. It was only a couple of months ago where there was rumour going around, it was in the press, saying that Santander are closing branches. Santander said, no, we are not. And then we got the news release last week, I think it was last week, stating we're going to lose the last bank in Colwyn. And I find it's absolutely disgraceful, Mr Mayor and colleagues, that we should at least get into these people and say, we need this service, not to turn around and carry on going forward and cancel it.
Second by Councillor Darcy Rose.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This has come as a big shock to the residents in Colne. When I first moved to Colne 52 years ago or longer, we had 5 or 6 main banks, and now we're just about to lose the last one. Now, I bank online. My husband would never do it because he thought we were going to be robbed of all our money, not that we have much. I don't mind banking online, but I also like to go into the branch as well. It's a very, very friendly branch. It's always busy. There's always a queue. You know, so if we can keep that one and only bank that we have left, then all well and good. People are very upset. And talking about people banking online, there are still a lot of people about that don't do that. They don't do it. You know, maybe in 20 years' time, those people will have disappeared. I'll be one of them. And everybody will be banking online, but as it is now, and for a good few years, there'll always be people that want to go into the bank and deal with the transactions and ask questions, and so yeah, people in Colne are very, very upset about it.
Councillor David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Lord contacted me at some early hour of the day, and we had a discussion over the Tinterweb, and I put this motion in on behalf of Councillors Bell and Lord. The other action that we got underway, was it last Wednesday? I think it was last Wednesday, was a petition where we have a petition running opposing the closure of the bank, and if anybody wants to sign the petition, if they scan this QR code, it will take you online and you can pop the your support for the opposition to the closure on that petition. Mr. Mayor, for my sins, I've represented the bit of Colne where Santander Bank is on the County Council. It's amazingly in the Pendle Rural Division, and you might wonder why Pendle Rural goes through the centre of Colne, but there you go. The thing about Colne is that it's a very bustling and busy town centre. Loads and loads of shops, very buoyant, a lively nightlife, and a really thriving town centre that people use, and they use Santander Bank. As Councillor Lord said, it's busy. So it's beyond belief that Santander are closing it, but clearly they've got a strategy across the nation, 95 closures. I suspect that our protests, both from this council and from our petition, will probably fall on deaf ears. And I just wanted to relate our experiences in Barnoldswick, where the last bank closed. We got up in arms about it, and the banking hub in Barnoldswick was, I think, the first to be opened in the county. So we got a banking hub. I think that's a very valuable asset. I think that it's not just a second best, but actually the prospect of something better than a single bank, because all banks you can access withdrawals, you can make deposits, and then for the banks that come in and offer a face-to-face service on a one-day-a-week basis, there's an opportunity for multiple banks to have that service available. But I hear this week that Link, the organisation referred to in the resolution, has assessed Colne and says that in their view Colne doesn't need to have a banking hub, which is quite frankly mind-boggling. So, Mr. Mayor, I fully support this resolution. I think it's absolutely crucial for Colne that we keep a bank, or we have a banking hub, and I hope that the council will be unanimous in supporting this emergency resolution to make these representations and, as a matter of urgency, get round the table with Santander, get round the table with Link, or virtually online, get round the table with Link to get a banking hub on the go as well. So, Mr Mayor, I support.
Thank you.
Just briefly, Mr Mayor, thank you for that. Yeah, I fully support the motion that we should be having discussions with Santander and encourage them to kind of remain and continue to operate within Cone. My understanding is that Link will not probably engage unless there is no bank within a town. But we can have a conversation with both to encourage them to obviously bank them to come, and then also to ask Santander to remain, because it's crucial to provide services. Because some people, like has been said, that don't bank online or digitally. So yeah, fully support the motion.
Any more speakers? Could we go for the... Yes, Mr Blair.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate, I actually saw the leaflet that was handed out by Santander in Cole. And the figures that they showed say why we're closing. It says 73% of our customers use online on telephone banking. That leaves 27% that don't, they rely of actually going into that bank. It also stated for businesses that have been in 3 or more times to do a general inquiry was a very low figure. I think it was about 27%. I'd like to know what it would have been if one business had gone in and asked for one inquiry. It also showed a graph for saying a normal person going in with a normal account who had gone in for 3 inquiries in this process area that they did it. I remember I've got a bank, I don't go in every week and ask for a general inquiry. I might go in twice a year. I might go in 3 times in a year. I don't go 3 times in 3 months. So I might be happy with what I've got, but I still want that ability to go in and see somebody face to face. And like I say, we've got a high demographic in the Cone area, which are elderly, that do not use online. They do not use smartphones. My son is 23-year-old, he does everything by his phone, he doesn't carry cash. Me, I'm the old-fashioned way, I like to have cash, but I'm quite happy to use a card now and again. But somebody like Councillor Lord, who likes that interaction, it's a face to see that you might not see all week, but it's getting out of the house and to create, to do something. So it's taking away, if they lose that bank, you're taking away that contact. You're going to end up with people being isolated. And we're going to have isolation in this borough, which will not, for me, is
I do speak to other people.
Yeah, yeah, we know you. But I think we need to try and keep, if we can, get into that dialogue and to keep this going. It's like saying 73% will use it. We've got more than a quarter of our population that use that bank, go in and use that all the way. Thank you.
Would we all go for the vote? All those in favour? Thank you. Have a good night.
Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the worship Mayor and Councillor Malik.
Do it.